Welcome back. I need you guys to know that I'm getting so excited talking about the Cold War that I am literally sweating. So, imagine being in class with me right now because I would be pacing all over the place. This video, we're going to talk about Cuba. Cuba, right? But it's more fun to say Cuba. Anyway, this is the absolute peak of Cold War tension. This was the boiling point. This was the most intense time during the Cold War. And there were a lot of intense things that happened during the Cold War that spanned from 1945 all the way until 1991. And this was the absolute tipping point, people. Okay, 1959. We got Fidel Castro. He overthrows the U.S. supported President Batista. Okay, that's his last name. All right, and Castro established a communist government in Cuba. All right, Castro killed, imprisoned, or exiled anyone who opposed him, and he also kicks us out for good. Now, prior to Fidel Castro coming to Cuba, right, America vacationed to Havana, Cuba, which is the capital city, for years. Havana is known for their nightclubs, their bars, their beautiful scenery, right, architecture, and America was kicked out. We also have a military prison at Guantanamo Bay. If you've never heard of Guantanamo Bay, I highly suggest you research it. It's actually really interesting. This is where we house terrorists. The United States. This is where we house some terrorists. It was supposed to be, I have a star by there, it was supposed to be closed down under the Obama administration. However, I'm not entirely sure if it's even still there. It very well could be. They're also notorious for using torture tactics, which is illegal, by the way. Look it up. It's very interesting, seriously, but brace yourself. Some of the details might be a little bit graphic. Anyway, we were forced out. You can't vacation to Havana anymore. You can't buy Havana cigars, which are supposed to be the best in the world. Smoking is disgusting, though, so don't do it. And Guantanamo Bay, get out. If you want a prison, establish it elsewhere, right? So, fine. President Kennedy was like, okay, fine, screw you. We don't want anything to do with you anyway. And they stopped trading with Cuba. Okay, by 1961, all relations with Cuba were completely severed, gone, dismissed, erased, whatever word you want. They were gone. Okay? There is, I'm going to butcher this, Fulgencio Batista, the ousted president of Cuba. And then the guy pictured on the right is Fidel Castro. All right. Anyway, we'll get to them. Fun-ish facts, all right? Actually, this is very fun. The CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, all right, the World Police, attempted to assassinate Fidel Castro over 630 times. You read that, that's not a typo. 630 times, and they failed every single time. Now, they tried lacing his cigars. He smoked cigars a lot. They laced his cigars with poison. They made some of them explosive. They tried poisoning his scuba suit, because he scuba dived all the time, but that never worked. They tried placing explosive seashells where he used to scuba dive, right? They all worked. Castro died of old age in 2016. So, how do you miss killing somebody that many times, right? If you're trying to assassinate a world leader, you would think that you would try harder. 630 times. What? That's crazy. Absolutely insane. Good for Castro for escaping that. And CIA, yikes. Shouldn't you, do your job better? I don't know. Anyway, we also tried invading Cuba in 1961 because we wanted to overthrow Castro. We thought that the people of Cuba needed rescuing, that they didn't like communism. When we got there, we were wrong. All right. Yes, of course. Castro wasn't loved by everyone, right? He's a communist leader. But most people in Cuba were okay with it. So when we invaded the Bay of Pigs, yes, it's a real place in Cuba, we were met with people who were like, nah, we like Castro, get out. And we literally were arrested. It was embarrassing. Anyway, you'll learn more about that in your U.S. history class. The Days the Earth Stood Still, which is also the name of an awesome science fiction movie around the same time. But anyway, we got the Cuban Missile Crisis. All right. This happened in October of 1962. How it started, we had nuclear missiles in Turkey pointing at the Soviet Union, more importantly, Moscow. So then the Soviet Union found out about this, hey, that's not cool. Don't point nuclear missiles at me. So they put missiles in Cuba pointing at the United States. Kennedy had a decision to make. He could let the United Nations handle it. He could order an airstrike, or he could have a land invasion. However, any wrong decision, wrong move could have resulted in complete mass destruction, nuclear warfare. This is the closest the world has ever been to a nuclear war. For 13 days, it lasted 13 days. For 13 days, the world was on edge. Schools were teaching duck and cover drills, right? Which it's kind of hilarious. I'll explain it to you really quick. Similar to how we have fire drills, well, they had duck and cover drills back in the day where you literally got under your desk in the fetal position, hand over your neck like this. And that was supposed to save you from a nuclear bomb. Fun fact that won't, but I digress. Right? So people were genuinely terrified every single day. What's going to happen? Are we going to be here tomorrow? We need to start stocking up on food and supplies. Think of it like COVID-19 when people were panic buying. That was October of 1962 in the United States. What do we do? Do we have bomb shelters? Do we have gas masks? What if the Russians invade? Oh my gosh, so many possibilities. And it all was on the back of President John F. Kennedy. All right. Here's just a map of the time of where all the missiles were pointing at. Cuba sits 90 miles south of Florida, right? So that's really close. So we were really afraid. Look at all these nuclear bombs. Seattle, Los Angeles, Denver, even Mexico City, Atlanta, Miami, Washington, D.C., New York, all over the place, okay? End result, Kennedy decided to just have a naval blockade. We are just going to block any more nuclear missiles coming into the country from the Soviet Union. All right. This proved to be an excellent idea. Eventually, both sides stood down. All right. Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev, the leader of the Soviet Union, decided to take down all missiles that were pointing at each other from Turkey and Cuba. Granted, whether they still had more somewhere else, who knows? A hotline was also established between Washington, D.C. and Moscow to keep open communications, right? That way, like, hey, how's it going? Any nuclear warheads you want to tell me about? Right? And then also a nuclear test ban treaty. Both countries agreed to stop testing any nuclear weapons by 1963. All right. Anyway, there's Kennedy pictured on the left, a Boston native. Of course, you all probably know that. And then the guy on the right is a very funny looking Nikita Khrushchev. Yes, that's his name, Nikita Khrushchev, right? He's funny looking. But anyway, so that's Cuba for you. Stay tuned for Vietnam.